welcome to the Real CP Show. I'm your host, CP. And today's topic, this Amish woman, violent, disillusioned, tried to unalive her kids, her teenage kids, by the way. Well, I'll get to that in a little bit. But unfortunately, one she did unalive, another one. But her husband, the conversation about her husband basically losing his life at this particular lake, it was like some little small print, right, that you don't even pay attention to. It was almost like a gigantic insult. Now, the Amish personnel is usually the type of mysteriousness that many people don't pay attention to. None of the people do. These are the ones, the sectionality or the entity that for most people, they'll think about the horse and the buggy and the man that has this long beard and that type of certain type of hat on. And the woman, she has this long, like a long time ago type of dress with the little hat, little bun looking thing on top of her head. That's usually what people think. The ones who look at that is what they think the Amish personnel, the man and the woman looks like, right? And they only make up about a few 100,000 demographics within the United States, right? And these are the ones that are supposed to be about forsaken of using a lot of modern day technologies, right? Now, again, there are some liberal sections of Amishism that still do use banks. Yes. Right. Some of them do have cars. Right. Again, that depends on which one. Right. But we're not going to get into all that. Just get into this story because, again, like so many different things, it's like, oh, well, we think, oh, they're so wholesome. This across the board. There's no bad ones. Right. So let's go ahead and share my screen. Well, before I show that, this is another picture of this little wholesome, violent, disillusioned, this particular Amish woman right here. This is hold on, let me get this off screen here. This is another picture, which again, when I show you this, a little bit of this information, it's almost like nauseating how she was on the right side, how this Amish woman, she was treated with still the utmost of still respect and humanity after she admits that she stood there and drove a golf cart into this lake with her someone with teenagers. And then another one, she basically threw into the water where that child became unalive. And after she admits it, and she still was treated with utmost respect. And could you imagine if that would have been a black woman who did that, let alone a black man? Oh my goodness. But it just keeps showing you the hypocrisy-ness that continues to keep going on. On the left side of the picture, this particular woman at this particular agency, the right one, the violent Amish woman, the one that this applies to here, she wants to pray for her, even though she's already admitted what she's done. Golly. So let's go ahead and share the screen. Let me go. What I want to play first. Can we go ahead and play this video here first? And just watch. Make sure okay. And just watch how this particular enforcement personnel, how the humanity she will be treated with still utmost respect. After what she did heinously.
I gave him to God.
You gave him to God?
Yes.
What do you mean by that?
A 4-year-old boy is dead, and his mother is under arrest after this chilling admission caught on body cam.
I gave him to God.
You gave him to God?
Yes.
What do you mean by that?
I threw him in the lake, and I gave him to God. And people are going to tell me, God. And people are going to tell me, I threw him in the lake, and I gave him to God. And people are going to tell me I am crazy, but he is real, and he loves you.
Authorities say they were called after a a report of a golf cart driving into Atwood Lake in Ohio. Investigators say 40-year-old Ruth Miller admitted to driving the cart into the lake and throwing the child off the dock into the water. They say Miller then drove the cart back to the family's camper to pick up her other children, a teenage daughter and 18-year-old twin sons. She then allegedly drove the golf cart into the lake carrying her 3 children, who were all able to get themselves out of the water to safety. Miller tells police she did it after determining her husband had gone into the lake and wasn't coming back.
Yes.
Where's your husband?
He went for a walk this morning.
And you haven't seen him
He
since?
didn't ever come back. And we went to the boat and his clothes were there. And God told me he's in the lake and a fish swallowed him.
Divers later recovered the
And you haven't seen him
He
since?
didn't ever come back. And we went to the boat and his clothes were there. And God told me he's in the lake and a fish swallowed him.
Divers later recovered the child's body as well as her husband's. Ruth Miller is charged with murder in connection with the death of her child. She also later recovered the child's body as well as her husband's. Ruth Miller is charged with murder in connection with the death of her child.
And look how after she's admitted what she's after what this violent version of this Amish woman did to her teen daughter, and I think it was 2 18-year-olds, somewhere around that, boys, that she drove into the lake, basically trying to unalive them, and then try to sit there and say, well, God, there are some really disillusioned people that's going on and utilizing that almighty presence type name on that. And the thing about it, then she throws the 4-year-old boy into the water. He drowns. And then the husband, it's almost like mysterious situation. Well, what about him? You don't hear too much about him. Did he jump in the water and try to save the child? Most likely. Or did she do some kind of domestic abuseness toward him? Be it emotionally, physically abused him, mentally abused him, something where he jumped into the water, right, knowing he couldn't swim, as she threw the little baby in the water.
She also faces felonious assault and endangering children. She's not charged with the death of her husband.
What? No accomplices. No, she had something to do with something on that. She coerced him, anything. But if it was vice versa, oh, you best believe he would have been charged if it was vice versa.
Miller has pleaded not guilty by reason of insanity.
And you see already how she's treated with, again, utmost respect and everything on that. Okay? So let me stop that for a second. But again, as she did the heinous stuff to her kids, she's still treated with utmost respect and humanity. Wow. Okay. All right. And to have this violent, demonic hands upon this other woman who should have been like, no, hey, don't put your hand. No, get your hands off me. Nope. Oh, God. This is when she was basically in jail, basically, or going to her hearing on that situation. So let me go ahead and share my screen again. This is one of the last ones here. Right here. So this is the other quick video I'm gonna play. But let me just sit there. What? Amish mother, Anglo woman, accused of unaliving a 4-year-old son during a spiritual delusion, please insanity. Let me just read this quickly for in this part. You see, this is published September the 8th, 2025. Today is September the 15th, 2025. Whatever this place is right here, Ohio, this Amish mother accused of drowning her 4-year-old son pleaded not guilty by reason of insanity at this particular county court. Ruth Miller, 40 years old, has been indicted on a total of 7 counts. 1 count of aggravated unalivement for her 4-year-old son, 1 count of murder for her 4-year-old son, 1 count of felonious assault for her 4-year-old son, 1 count of child endangering for her 15-year-old daughter, 3 counts of domestic violence for the 15-year-old daughter and twin 18-year-old sons. Look at that. This is the demonic being right here that was still treated with respect on that video I showed you already on that. This particular sheriff said at 1 a.m. on August the 23rd, 2025, the husband and wife who believed God was speaking to them went to the dock and jumped in the water. This particular sheriff said they were carrying out tasks to try and prove their faith to God. Once they returned to the campgrounds, Marcus, that was her husband, reportedly told Ruth he was going back to the lake. Then around 8:30 a.m. on August 23rd, 2025, this particular sheriff said Ruth placed Vincent, that was the 4-year-old little boy, on the golf cart, returned to the dock, and drowned him. Around 10:30 a.m. on August 23rd, 2025, this particular sheriff said Ruth drove the golf cart into the lake with her 3 teenagers, a 15-year-old daughter and an 18-year-old son on board. The teenagers got out of the water on their own and were not injured. But at the same time, she still was treated with humanity. So let me go ahead and play this particular clip.
The story out of Tuscarawas County that's played out for a couple of weeks now, almost 3 weeks, is hard to comprehend. The Tuscarawas County Sheriff calls it a spiritual delusion. A mother who claims God was speaking to her and her husband, putting them through tests as they would go swim in Atwood Lake. Her husband would end up drowning in Atwood Lake. He wasn't a strong swimmer, but God was testing his faith. The authorities believe he did drown because he wasn't a good swimmer. But then later that morning, this was a Saturday morning, Ruth Miller, feeling she wasn't being adequate in her faith to God, decided to throw her 4-year-old son in the lake, something she admits to. And in the body cam video, that's the first thing we're going to show you. You're going to see what the sheriff describes as spiritual delusion. At one point, she even prays with one of the paramedics, has her get down on her knees in the middle of a parking lot. After that, we're going to hear from her attorneys. Now, Ruth Miller was in court this week where she has pleaded. She has pleaded not guilty by reason of insanity.
So let me go fast forward this.
This
to look how she's treated. This is when they escorted her from, and she did what she did.
You listen to the bong with her 3 teenagers at the body.
I gave him to God.
You gave him to God.
Yeah.
What do you mean by that?
I threw him in the lake and I gave him to God. And people are going to tell me I am crazy, but he is real. And he loves you. He really does love you. He loves you. And I doubted him. I doubted him so many times. But I am to tell you, he is coming soon. He is coming very soon. Prepare your hearts. The end is close. And I'm for sure supposed to tell you.
Now look, she putting her little violent hands on him. Now, again, if this is a black woman, and especially if this is a black male, oh, you best believe the other people in back of him, or beside of him, or he himself, oh, she would even got that close. But again, right, when people look at certain people, they sit there and give them the privilege, regardless of what belief that person has, well, depending, as long as the outside phenotype matches a certain way, and that is non-black melanation.
And he does
And by the way, I'm not talking about coons and sellouts and some gullible ones, by the way.
love you. Okay.
Ma'am, who did you? Can you explain to me what happened? Who did you throw in the water?
I gave my son to God.
Your son?
Yes.
Where's your husband?
He went for a walk this morning.
And you haven't seen him since?
Never come back. And we went to the boat and his clothes were there. And God told me he in the lake and a fish swallowed. And you're actually supposed to go look for him.
A fish swallowed her husband. A fish swallowed her husband like this was Jonah. And being swallowed by a fish. Now, again, this is why when people say, well, you got people that are not innately evil, they are silly. There are, oh, give me a second here. Give me a second. There are some very evil people. She's evil. And she definitely is delusionary. It's like, do people think that God wants to tell them to throw some kids in the water, like in a situation, or tell her husband to jump in the water and save the kid after her wife, his delusionary evil wife, monstrosity wife, threw the kid in there and he knew he couldn't swim? Do you think God would have wanted that to happen?
The bottom of the lake. When you will find the fish and you will find the husband.
I'm just gonna stop right here. I don't want to play anymore because it nauseates me on that and how they were treating her with pure respect still, So, and the thing about it is, again, if that would have been a black man or a black woman who did something like that, the whole circumstances would have been totally different on that. And she gets to plea, oh, no, insanity. But when something happens toward, say, a black male that commits extremely small type of certain bad things, small numbers, 99.8999899% of black Americans do not commit crimes like that. But of course, in various parts of society within Americanism, that the ones it applies to has a very anti-American black hatred. Right? And also some Anglo adjacent ones that want to be like certain ones within certain parts of Panamanian culture. You got some black adjacent tethered hodders who want to sit there and cosplay black Americanists, but at the same time jump up and down and they play their tribalism situation then, right? But it's a whole different topic. I make this point where, in closing, it was a very disgustingness of what this particular violent Amish woman did on that. And then to sit there and say God did it, which of course God had nothing to do with that. But the last thing I want to sit there and just read on this situation is that they talk about mental issues, particular mood disorders like bipolar 1 and 2 are found in the Amish communities with genetic factors contributing to increased hold on, let me read this again. Mental issues, particularly mood disorders like bipolar 1 and 2 are found in Amish communities with genetic factors contributing to increased risk. While some studies show lower rates of depression and anxiety overall, likely due to community support and lifestyle, other issues like high unalivement rates, especially among women. You see how that goes? And this is getting so beyond disgusting. What they're doing is telling men in general, go to hell, right? That's what they're telling men. Men's lives. Oh, who cares about men's lives, right? And unfortunately, there are some gullible, freaking naive type males who would do everything they can to help out with women's rights, left and right, and sit there and discard men's rights. You know that is a simpleton type of naive type males. And there's quite a number of males like that. And the feminists know, and they're laughing at men like that every day. Continuing, I'm going to read too much of this, Sarah, due to Genetic factors increase risk for mood disorders due to relative small founding population and limited marriage outside of the group. The Amish have unique genetic variations. Bipolar disorder, again, studies have identified specific genetic markers in the Amish that increase the risk for bipolar disorder. High rates of certain conditions, bipolar 1 and 2, and what is it? Unipolar disorder are common diagnoses among Amish patients admitted to psychiatric facilities. Let me hold on for a second. Some Amish communities may have negative views of mental illness, consider it a sign of weakness or lack of faith, which can prevent people from seeking help. Watch this. Here we go again. This pro-woman stuff here. Gender disparities. Amish women often face more hardship, leading to high rates of depression, unalivement, and domestic abusement compared to men. You see, this is disgusting. And unfortunately, in generals too, there are some freaking naive, silly type males that keep the thing with domestic violence every day, acting as if women are not the majority or just as likely as certain males to commit high rates of domestic abuse. There are numbers of women who commit just as high and even more instances of domestic abuse. But again, this society makes sure not to talk about that, right? But again, but you start trying to find out, hey, where's the facilities out there for men domestic abuse victims, man? Watch how crickets get started. And unfortunately, it's like almost like the silliness of numbers of males once applies to, with very few exceptions, that sit there and parakeet numbers of males being minimizing, are naive to not understand that men get domestic abuse left and right. Right? There's financial abuse. There's numbers of one financial abuse men every day. This is why you got, I don't want to go on all that. That was a whole different story. Like mental abuse, numbers of women mental abuse men every freaking day. But again, those are different things. I don't want to go on all that. So let me finish up here for a second. Let me finish up this one to read, because actually I almost forgot. So I want to play something real fast. Let me see here for a second. Cultural challenges in treatment, cultural sensitivity. Mental health professionals need culturally competent approaches to effectively serve the Amish communities. Let me read that. Cultural sensitivity. Mental health professionals need cultural competent approaches to effectively serve the Amish community. It didn't say other people's community. It didn't say other different backgrounds and people. Nope. But at the same time, Black Americans were already in the country of America before really the Amish even started setting foot in America. Let me repeat this. Black Americans were already sitting in America before numbers of Amish people really started coming to existence. And their numbers would have been small when they start coming over here slightly around the 1800s, right? They have to worry about being lynched, right? By the KKK, especially in 1900s. They don't have to worry about having slave codes put upon them in the 16 and 1700s, right? And here it is, centuries later, Black pain keeps happening every day, but you got people you don't hear people saying, you know what? You know, Black Americans go through so much still. We know there's some of them that are naive and they minimize. They got a lot of high anxiety among each other because it's like they hoping that when criminality happens, they hope it's not them. Even though they're not the overall most criminal type people, they still feel iffish and stuff like that when they see something about criminality, right? Millions of American Blacks need cultural counseling, cultural resources. But nope, border break illegal immigrants get more resources than American Blacks. You know that's insultingness, right? But that's a whole different topic in itself, right? But there's no cultural competent approaches to effectively help the Black American community. Just get over it. the insultingness, right? But last thing I want to sit there and show for a second that, again, hold on, let me get this off the screen here for a second. Let me share this one last thing, because there are certain liberalness of certain Amish people on that. Not a lot, but still. This right here was breaking Amish, and I was not going to take a look at that. Was not interested in that. But I'm just going to show just a piece of this. I guess this is like a piece of something, wherever it is, a clip. I'm just utilizing this for fair use as doctrine. Breaking Amish.
No idea what kind of people they were.
She can either grow up or go home.
I just want to go home.
At this point, I have no freaking idea what's going on.
You're totally hot. It was overwhelming. Ow. Gabe and Rebecca are shacking it up. Everything has changed.
Right? So anyway, I thank you for tuning in to the Real CP show.